Dawn Dines, who's from Stamp Out Spiking. Dawn, good afternoon to you. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. These numbers and percentages are horrific.
They are horrific. And to be honest with you, with those stats that you've just quoted from the National Police Chief Crime Council, they are just a tip of the iceberg, because when we actually done our own survey here at Stamp Out Spiking, over 97% of victims didn't actually report getting spiked to the police. And
Oof.
like you say, it's a bit, they're ashamed, they're embarrassed, and they just and to be honest with you, when these drugs go out of your system, you're very confused. You don't somebody's actually poisoned you. That's what's actually happening on our streets.
And the shocking, I mean, I don't know, where would they be getting? Are these drugs easy to get hold? Obviously, we don't want to give anybody any ideas, but are these drugs
Yeah.
particularly easy to get hold of?
Well, they must be. You know,
Mm.
we're hearing from people on the streets that the drug of choice at the moment is ketamine, and that can be used in spiking incidents. There's also Rohypnol, but there's also prescription drugs. You know, and a little while ago, I was in a pub and I overheard a couple of girls talking, and one of them said, "Oh, she was having trouble sleeping." And the other one said, "Oh, don't worry, my granddad gets prescribed like temazepam, and I can give you those." And I was like, oh my God. So
Yeah.
we've got to be warning people that, you know, even prescription drugs, we've got to be really careful of those drugs as well.
I mean, with people carrying out this act, do they see it as a passive act? Because it's one of the most violent acts I think you could ever perpetrate, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I believe so too. I mean, I've been campaigning for this for the past 20 years. We've now got the law updated because it was so antiquated. It was like poisoning with obnoxious substance, but it had to be proved it was done with malicious intent. And now, you know, the law is going to be updated. It's going through Parliament as we speak. But, you know, we need the government to be putting some serious funding into this. We need to be training bar staff, security staff, those amazing street pastors that are out every weekend, you know, volunteering their time, and even taxi drivers. Basically, anyone who works in the nighttime economy should have an invested interest in this. And even if that's the drink industry, putting their hands in their pocket and helping out charities like ourselves.
And talking of Spike, I mean, I was just mentioning there that one of my team on my show says that she and her friends will wear leather jackets if they go to a concert or anything. I mean, horrific. I just can't even imagine even having to think in those terms. But how, you know, is this spiking happening? I mean, the needle spiking I'm absolutely gobsmacked about. But the drink spiking and all of those things, what is the process of that? How do you potentially know that you've been spiked? How do you potentially protect yourself from it?
Well, first of all, if you these drugs, once they're put into your system, they take probably about 20 minutes before they really take effect. So if you start to get a blurred vision and you start to feel really drunk really quickly, you feel like a bit of an out of body experience, then you need to get to a trusted member of staff or a trusted friend really quickly and tell them what's happened to you so that they can safeguard you. I mean, there are protective drink covers. I don't know if you saw in the Sunday Times today that we've got sort of spikies, these little counters that can be put in top of a bottle. There's also stop tops, which are like a foil to protect your drink. And if anybody tampers with it, it will rip. And, you know, never leave your drink unattended either. There's also like a scrunchie called a nightcap. And I think the more bars that suddenly start taking on this training, like we need these big corporates like Weatherspoons and you know all those other massive corporate companies. They need to be training all of their staff on spiking issues. And with the new legislation which is coming in from the Home Secretary, it's going to be now sort of mandatory by the end of this year for people who work in the Security Industries Authority to have some sort of form of training on spiking issues, because these are the key people that are going to be keeping us safe.
Yeah,
when we're all out
the guys
partying.
on security, you know, they are brilliant. Actually, if you're ever in any trouble, um, the thing
They're amazing.
with this spiking, though, I always imagine that somebody who is going to carry out this act is like a hyena looking at a pack of antelope, and they'll be looking for the weak one at the back, or the one that is slightly more separated from the others. They're not necessarily going to go for the you know, the confident person with close friends around them.
Well, we say that, but you know, we've had so many. You imagine, I love that analogy as well, because that's exactly what it is. People are out praying
Yeah.
and looking for the weak link. But you know, the reports that we've had, we even had a report today, I don't know if you've seen it, from Kate McGann, who said that she was spiked as well, and she was out with a group of friends. Now, if you I always try and look at the person who's doing this, the perpetrator. So if somebody is going out and they're doing this and they spiked like a couple of people, one goes off to the toilet, the other one goes off towards the exit, and then they can take you off because, as I said earlier, these date rape drugs, they you can't put up a fight, you become compliant, and then you're left with no memory what's happened to you. So it's very serious. It really is. And it's about time that, like I said, that the government are going to start backing charities and getting this training out there because it's imperative. It really is.
And it's also, I understand, drugs are being used in this way to make people compliant to being robbed. They'll be walked to a cash machine
Yep.
and told to empty their account. They do it willingly, or at least, you know, because of the drug. And people are being just left wandering the streets with no knowledge of what they've done, and they've just willingly handed over all of their bank account.
Yeah, but I mean, we've had. I got contacted recently by a mum, and her son was out in London, and that exactly the same thing happened. He was drugged in a pub, taken off, and now he can't even claim his money back. So it's,
Yeah.
you know, that this is happening for robbery, it's happening for sexual assault, and even bribery. We heard a few years ago from Andrew Castle, and he said that a lady spiked him and got him into a taxi, and he just managed to undo the window of the taxi and got some fresh air and got the taxi driver to let her go. And then a few years later, he saw that she was actually spiking men and bribing them. So
God.
this isn't just happening, you know, everyone assumes it's men doing it to women,
No, no, no.
but
It's men
that's,
as well that it's happening to. Well, how do
yeah.
you? I mean, okay. So that we've talked about, you know, having to cover your drink, never leaving your drink alone. But what else should you do if you're out with a small group of friends? What is the best way to proceed to make sure that you all get home safely?
Well, you know, like they do in the military. I was speaking to, I've done a podcast recently with a gentleman whose son is in the military, and they have somebody called on Shark Watch. So that's having someone who's sober that goes out with you, that looks out for you all. You know, there's some different apps now. There's like the Holly Guard app, which we recommend for people to look at and use. So there's lots of different ways that you can be safeguarding. And also, you know, everyone should be looking out not just for their friends, but for everybody. If you see somebody doing something untoward to somebody else's drink, then please go and tell the bar staff, the security staff, or even the person whose drink has been tampered with. And while we were talking about the needle spiking, I mean, luckily that's pretty minuscule on the whole scheme of things. But also, I'd like to warn your viewers as well that vapes are actually being spiked as well. So
What?
please be careful. If anybody comes to you and says, would you like to try my blueberry vape? No, thank you, because they're spiking vapes.
What?
Yeah,
That I didn't know. Crikey, that's terrifying.
it is terrifying.
So just
Uh,
keep an eye on each other, and I
yeah.
mean, I can't imagine there would ever be a case where somebody would see somebody spiking a drink and not tell the bar staff. Surely,
Well, you'd like to think so, wouldn't
you
you? I
really
mean,
would. Yeah.
these, these people who are doing this, I've been talking to, you know, psychologists, criminologists, toxicologists, and we've been trying to work out that there's this real grey area. And this is where we've got a big survey on at the moment. So if anybody who's been affected by spiking, if you could go to our website at Stamp Out Spiking, because we're trying to find out like where we're letting people down on the victim's journey. So when you've actually been spiked and you're out, what happens to you? Why are we not gaining convictions? And time again, it's so prevalent that the testing. So if you and I went out tonight and one of us got spiked and we went straight to the hospital, they would not test us to see what drug was in our system, because they believe that is the police's job. The police are under resourced. They can't get there on time. Some of these date rape drugs can go out of your system as quick as 6 hours. So we've got a little chance to be able to gain that toxicology report. So really, it's urgently needed. For me, I need to be seeing the police and I need to be seeing the NHS in the same room, working out some strategy that we can actually get this testing done in time so we can start gaining convictions.
And that then gives us the power back, doesn't it? Having had it taken away from us so ruthlessly, at least then we've got a little bit of power back.
Yeah, exactly. And, I believe that getting all those right people in the room, I mean, we had all this rapid testing for COVID. We've just been through all of that, all of us together. So why can't we have the same sort of thing? I've got hospitals and toxicologists that are waiting to do this,
No, it's a good question.
We just need the government.
Yeah, we just need the backing for that. Dawn, thank you so much. Pleasure talking to you. Dawn Dines there, Stamp Out Spiking. I shall never taste anybody's vape ever again.